Hello, everyone, and live from beautiful downtown Montreal, it is Locked On Canadiens. They have picked Juraj Slafkovsky first overall. They made a big trade. They picked another Slovak, and there are still 12 more draft picks to go. We have all the breakdown and news from day one at the NHL draft, all coming up next.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 653 of Locked On Canadiens. I am very much in downtown Montreal. I'm not going to tell you where. The fans are currently very mad at me, and that's a safety risk no one needs in their life. Oh my God, we have so much to get to in this episode, but first, I am one of your hosts. I am Scott Matla. As you can see, I am in my suit jacket with my credential and everything. I have walked in the door from the Bell Center 15 minutes ago. I am one of your hosts of Locked On Canadiens, and I'm joined by the active stick, Laura Saba. And Laura is also taking in the entire insane night. She was on all the breaking news while I fought with the Bell Center Wi-Fi. Laura, before we get into the pick itself, holy absolute chaos is all I can say about that first round.
The Montreal Canadiens, I think, surprised everybody. They made a lot of bold moves, which I like. I want to get this out of the way, is that the first overall pick did surprise me. I was quite shocked because all indications were that they would take Shane Wright. And they kept talking to Shane Wright. That made him feel like he would be the first overall. And then it was Juraj Slafkovsky. And at this point, I embarrassingly still cannot say his name, and I'm going to have to say his name for the next, 10, 15 years. I think that, a big misconception is that we would have been disappointed with this pick. We wanted a center. I think the Habs wanted a center, and they ended up getting a center. They just did it differently than we thought. Now, what are we getting in Slafkovsky? We are getting somebody with an absurd amount of confidence, which I love, because you're going to play in Montreal. You are the first overall pick of a brand new organization, a brand new front office, I should say. You're getting a player who has an immense amount of confidence, but you're getting a guy who's very big. And that's not where it ends. Now, a lot of times you fall for size, you get a guy who's big, and, it doesn't just happen in hockey. It also happens in dating. If you're over 6 feet, it masks a lot of shortcomings. I think for me, I see that, Scott. I think for me, the big thing is that we have to remember that he has talent. It's not like the Canadiens went for an untalented, unskilled player. That is absolutely not it. They got a dynamic forward. Yes, he's a big guy, but he can skate. He can skate really well, and he makes great decisions. And those are three things that is hard to get in one single player. Even forget about the size. Somebody who skates well, but also has the skill and talent to make the right decisions. That to me is incredible. My only concern, and this has been my only concern all along, is with the Montreal Canadiens doing this. When we look at this, when we look back on this draft, 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago, will the Canadiens have made a mistake? That's my only concern. And I get why people are like, instead of going for the safe bet, go for the higher risk player, but who also might be higher reward. I think it was a little bit stunning that Shane Wright fell to fourth, and I'm very curious as to why. I'm wondering what teams felt about him. I think, I just don't want it to be 5 years from now and Seattle got the steal of the draft.
And here's the thing is they very well might have, because one, a lot of teams made a lot of very odd decisions in the first round, and Montreal was part of that. And we're going to get into why that makes sense in our next segment a little bit. But my thought was when Bob McKenzie just tweeted Juraj Slafkovsky's name I just kind of went, all right, I don't love it. I need to see something that goes along with this. Like, they need to draft a center. They need to do this. And they went and did that. And like I said, we'll get to that trade next. But the reaction inside the Bell Center was they said Slovakia, and the place erupted. I know that there were some fans, some very, very, not cool people who booed him outside before he walked in. It was so loud when they called his name. And then to the right of the press row, it was myself and Jared Book of Eyes on the Prize there. And we were sitting there and we just hear this commotion break out to our right. And we see fans pointing and we see security along the railings. We thought someone got in a fight and someone's getting thrown out because there's been a lot of alcohol. There's a lot of very highly charged people here. And it's Slafkovsky making his way off the draft floor up through the crowd so we could go talk to TVA Sports. And fans are high-fiving him. They are yelling. They olayed so loud through the next pick that it was delayed momentarily so the crowd wouldn't drown out the pick. We wanted Shane Wright on this podcast because we thought it made the most sense for where the Canadiens are at right now. Juraj Slafkovsky has talent. He is not just this is not Michael McCarron all over again. I look at his skill set as someone who has big and he has range, and we know he has offensive talent. Now, can he, show that outside of international circles? Can he get that consistency? Is he going to be in North America next year? We don't know. He's, like I said, he's a big kid. And you said he has skill. He has goal-scoring talents. Liga is tough. Admittedly, yes. His point totals in Liga were not stunning. And like I said, Montreal needed a center. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to chuck this kid in the bin immediately before seeing what does he do in development camp. If he's here for the preseason, what's he going to look like when he packs on a little bit more muscle to his frame? He's the height of Yoel Armia right now. And we know when Yoel Armia is going, what, he can do with the puck. And I am not saying Slafkovsky is going to be Yoel Armia in terms of point production. I'm excited because it's something new. We didn't know what they were going to do. We never knew what they were going to do. They mentioned Logan Cooley, Shane Wright, and Juraj Slafkovsky. They mentioned trading. We don't know what they were going to do. And that's, that's fine. Sometimes the fun is in the mystery a little bit. So it was interesting. I know a lot of people are going to point out that Habs fans are mad. It sounded pretty damn loud from where I was sitting. So whatever fuels what makes me happy, I guess. All right. So along with this, Montreal picked Juraj Slafkovsky, and then they continued a very chaotic first round. We're going to get into what they did, how they did it, and what that means coming up next. But first, today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. They are your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Get all the latest developments from the MLB. Go into football preseason is right around the corner. They have all your sports wagering info, including live betting, esports, and scores. They have all your news, podcasts, all in one place. And check on MMA. So head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more and the action. Bet online, where the game starts. We are back, Locked On Canadiens from downtown Montreal. Everything is chaos, is how I describe the first round. Juraj Slafkovsky went first overall. Simon Nemec went second overall. Logan Cooley went third overall. And then Montreal decided, hey, you know what we need to do? We need to make a trade. Gary Bettman trotted himself up onto that stage there, and he decided, I'm going to let them boo me because that's what I do. And then he went, I have a trade to announce, where some fans kind of went, well, maybe let's turn around. He goes, it involves Montreal. And the crowd went, oh, what the hell is going on? And I'm going to try and get this all off the cuff here as best I can. Montreal traded their 98th overall pick and Alexander Romanov to the New York Islanders for the 13th overall pick. They then packaged the 13th overall pick and 66th overall pick to the Chicago Blackhawks for center Kirby Dach. And I was sitting there as they announced this, trying to post this in Slack through the Wi-Fi challenges. And I don't think I can hesitate to say it's one of the most stunned, excited silences I've ever been around. It was something. And at the same time, I look at this and I go, Slafkovsky first overall makes a lot more sense because they just traded for a 21-year-old center who is 6'4" and fits the timeline of their rebuild. I don't know what the reaction was outside, but I was out of breath and I was just typing things at that point.
So the reaction was positive from what I can tell. My question is if Kirby Dach, if he was, I'm wondering if the Blackhawks know something that we don't know about his injury issues, because that to me is my concern. I think he's big, he's talented. I think he's an exciting player. He's somebody that I had a lot of, Scott, you and I have brought him up in potential trades in the past, like somebody that we had our eye on. It's definitely somebody that I'm very, very excited to have in Montreal. I think it's exciting. I think it's a bold move. And I like the way that Kent Hughes looked after. I said this, on multiple, even on our Locked On Now, I said it. I said it on our clip with Gil and Brendan. I like how smug he looked. Like, this is a guy who has confidence to do bold moves. It's quite interesting. It's quite bold. I'm just gonna we can decide to look at the Shane Wright issue another time. We can relitigate that for years and years to come. But for me, we were just like, well, what are they going to do? Like, their center depth isn't where we want it to be. What are the Canadiens going to do? They didn't get a center, right? And what they did was they did get a center. It was
He's 21.
Yeah.
He was drafted in 2019, the same draft. They picked Cole Caulfield. Like,
there you go.
I get it. He has not hit the ceiling of a third overall pick. And we can't forget that in the year where he was having a promising start in Chicago, he went to World Juniors and in a pre-tournament game, got his wrist snapped on a cross-check collision at center ice and missed 5 months of action. That's a year of development gone. And then Chicago, quite frankly, and I know I'm saying this as a Canadiens fan, has been an unmitigated tire fire on and off the ice this year. They were so bad. They couldn't score any goals to start this year. And there is something coming out on Kirby Dach that I wrote for Eyes on the Prize here about what kind of player he is and why they're betting on this. It all makes sense, though. They didn't trade up for a draft pick that they may have to wait. Is Logan Cooley going to be ready this year? No. Is there a young guy that we can trade up and is NHL ready and can play minutes for us right now while we work through this and we have cost control? Kirby Dach's next contract is not going to be expensive. Like, he's 21. He hasn't lit up the NHL. Yeah, he's a third overall pick, but you can maybe get 4 or 5 years at a low cost because of that. And now you have your center behind Nick Suzuki. You still have Christian Dvorak. You still have Jake Evans and Ryan Poehling. And we talked last week, they're interested in Colin White as well. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. I think this trade makes Colin White much less of a priority for the Canadiens. I still think it might happen, but there's flexibility a little bit now. It gives them a little bit of options for what to do. And we'll talk day 2 and, the 26th overall pick in a little bit here. Everything came together with that I looked at this and went, this is why they picked Slafkovsky. Because I have a thought that's been bouncing around in my head that I was sitting there talking. I talked to Julian McKenzie about this when I saw him at the draft. I wonder if Montreal asked about Alex, who was traded this morning, and they were told this is the price, and that price was too high for a team that values their picks and young assets, and went, but they're also interested in selling off Kirby Dach and circled back around. If they had traded for Alex DeBrincat, would they be announcing Shane Wright as their first overall pick? Would they be announcing, Logan Cooley even as their first overall pick? We don't know. But I have to say, everything kind of makes sense here. I am sad to see Alexander Romanov go, but I think they really liked what they saw in Caden Gooley, in Jordan Harris, and Justin Barron now in the organization. I think they liked what they saw there, and this made the most sense for them to do right now.
I think it's really interesting because throughout the season, we talked a lot about Alexander Romanov, and a lot of fans thought he might be one of the untouchables on this team. I personally am going to miss him a lot. He was somebody that I really enjoyed watching. He was really fun. He was really fantastic. But we always wanted him to kind of crack that offensive sort of two-way game that he just wasn't able to. And he is still pretty young. I think that's also really important. But for me, I'm going to miss him as like a fan. You know what I mean? I'm going to miss watching him on the ice. I'm going to miss all of his, his social media presence because he was just like so enamored with his wife. It was quite adorable. I think, he's going to fit on a Lou Lamoriello team. And that I think is the reason why I think it's okay that this trade happened, right? Like if you think of a player and you're like, that guy's going to fit on a Lou Lamoriello team, that's a team that's being left behind. That's a team that you're not looking forward, you're looking backwards. And we talk so much about the Canadiens need to move on and be one of the more modern teams in the NHL. I love Alexander Romanov. I'm going to miss him a lot, but we've talked a lot about how there's a log jam, like a giant log jam of 2 to 7 defensemen, right? And if we really like what Gouli brought, and maybe he is going to be that number one I keep talking about that we need. I don't know. We think that, he's a minimum number 2. Is he potentially number 1? I don't know. But Alexander Romanov was not going to be the number 1. And let's be honest, the Canadiens have defensive depth in their prospect pool. It's not ready. There's a lot of questions on defense right now, but I think the defensive pool is pretty stocked. I'd still like to see them pick a few in round 2 of the draft, or rounds 2 to 7 of the draft. But I think it's okay that Romanov was traded, even though it makes me quite sad. And I'm sure it makes a lot of the players quite sad.
Yeah, I look at it this way too, is that I wonder, could the Canadiens have just kept 13th overall and made their pick there? A lot of this makes me seem is that they think they can get further ahead in the rebuild than where they are at right now. And I think Slafkovsky is part of that, is that if they pick a center, maybe it's a little bit longer. Centers, defensemen, goalies take a little bit more time. And I look at Romanov going and I go, yes, he's a Lou Lamoriello type. He loves to hit. He loves the physicality. That's his game. This last year in Montreal, he made strides, and then he had games where it looks like he's never been on the ice before. He was someone who was kind of caught in a riptide between, this is what I know I need to do, but I see this, and what do I do? And just something in there didn't develop the way that it needed to. And I like Romanov. I do. And it kind of sucks because I thought, like you, I never imagined he would be the one they would trade. I didn't think they were going to trade Caden Gouli, and I don't think they were going to trade Jordan Harris after getting him. I'm shocked that it was Romanov is the one who went. I thought that any number of prospects like a Ryan Poehling, someone who needs a fresh start, would go somewhere, and that wasn't the case. I'm very curious now to see what free agency holds in less than a week here. And we will talk on that. We're going to talk a little bit more at the end of round 1 and what 2 holds, all coming up in one moment. We are back. It is after night 1 of the NHL draft. If my voice is a little shot, I had to yell over the crowd often to talk to the people sitting next to me. The Canadiens ended out a very, very wild first night by picking a second Slovak player, Filip Mesar, out of Slovakia. I wrote his profile. We talked to David St. Louis about him a little bit. I love this pick for one reason, in that it's risky and it shows they're trying to take chances. Juraj Slafkovsky is taking chances. You put it best with Kirby Dach. It's a bold move. It's taking chances. They're betting on high ceilings, not low floors. And I think it's a commendable mindset for the Montreal Canadiens, a team that has been steeped in, we'll play it safe. I thought for sure they were going to be the team to pick Nathan Gauthier tonight before the Anaheim Ducks picked him. I thought for sure that was going to be their pick. Filip Mesar is a shifty, high-octane winger. He has a good shot. He has good hands, good skating. The physicality is not there. He doesn't do well around the puck or being bullied off the puck a little bit. But I don't think that should scare the Canadiens away from that. They're betting on his upside and that he's going to learn to play against men here in the near future. And I like it. I really do. And that's 3 Slovaks in the first round. And Slafkovsky and Mesar are good friends. Like, you're already, there's a photo of them hugging after the first round. Nemec, Slafkovsky, and Mesar. This is a big night for Slovakian hockey. And for the Canadiens, it's a departure from what we saw for the last decade.
I think it's really interesting as well that we talked a lot about, when they hired the scout to help with the scouting, like, and we were talking about how they would shift their focus to European players as a result. God, Scott, who am I thinking of? Not Martin Lapointe, the Jeff Gorton hire.
Oh, Nick Bobrov.
Yes, and we talked a lot about how, he was very knowledgeable on on European players. We looked at that and we're like, all right, like this is where their focus is going to go. I think it's really interesting that it happened, but not to the detriment of the Canadians. I like bold moves. I like interesting. I like high upside. I like risks. And we talk a lot about how if you don't take risks, you're not going to win. Are all of these players that they take high risks on going to pan out? I don't think so. If two of them pan out, how great is that?
It's kind of where I'm at on things. I look at the, I like what they're betting on. They're betting on them being able to develop and where they need to be instead of swim. Hopefully, it works out for you. It's such a change. They have a place to make these better, to reach potential. And I'm here from Chris Peters, which congratulations, job, Chris. We love it for you, and come back to the show very soon. There's so many good pieces still in the draft right now. And I'm very curious what they do. Like Jagger here, the Indians are not what they're doing right now. So I'm so in connection.
Yeah, we are having some connection issues. So Scott, do you think maybe we should end this podcast right here? And apologize to our listeners. We are trying our best. Hopefully the first couple of segments were good. And maybe we can end the podcast here. Scott, do you want to wrap it up and then we can regroup, and we will have some multiple special guests next week. We are also planning on going live, and we will break down everything the Canadiens did at this draft.
If you can hear whether or not you can, cool. I can see my voice. I'm doing our best at Airbnb and hotel Wi-Fi. So much more on as it goes. Obviously, for day 2, there's so much more. It's an exciting time and honestly, the great. I'm hopeful that day 2 is much fun and chaos. A little bit short here, but like I said, the Wi-Fi is all over the place. To be able to get at least this out to you. We will have so much. We have draft records coming. I'm going to try and get some more stuff out this weekend. Back to at LO1. Follow at the active Atla. See you all next time.